Welcome back to BYoungMinistry.com, to another blog and to another podcast. Welcome to those who access the podcast through Rumble and YouTube. Today we continue in our study of Mark chapter 6, verses 39 through 45, which reads, "Then Jesus told his followers to have the people sit in groups on the green grass. So they sat in groups of 50 or 100. Jesus took the 5 loaves and 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he thanked God for the food. He divided the bread and gave it to his followers for them to give to the people. Then he divided the 2 fish among them all. All the people ate and were satisfied. The followers filled 12 baskets with the leftover pieces of bread and fish. There were 5,000 men who ate. Immediately, Jesus told his followers to get into the boat and go ahead of him to Bethsaida across the lake. He stayed there to send the people home." That's Mark chapter 6, verses 39 through 45. Today we continue our study of Mark chapter 6, where the Lord Jesus was about to miraculously feed somewhere between 5,000 to 25,000 people. In the middle of all the ministry that was taking place, including teaching and healing the people of sicknesses, the disciples were being trained by the Lord Jesus on what it means to be his followers. And as we come to Mark chapter 6 and verse 39, the Lord Jesus was about to do something that the disciples could not do: feed a very large crowd of people. In verses 39 and 40 of today's passage, we read, "Then Jesus told his followers to have the people sit in groups on the green grass. So they sat in groups of 50 or 100. Previously, after the Lord Jesus commanded the disciples to feed the massive crowd, Andrew said, "We have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, but what are these for so many people?" The disciples located in the crowd a little boy who had prepared lunch. The word loaves is the word we translate biscuit, and the fish were sardines. According to Matthew's account of this story, in addition to 5,000, there were also women and children in the crowd. This is what causes most to believe that this crowd would have been up to some 25,000 people, and they only had 2 fish and 5 biscuits. It was at that moment the Lord Jesus ordered the disciples to have the people sit in groups of 50 or 100. And in an instant, the massive crowd transitioned from a milling crowd to very ordered people. In verse 41 of today's passage, we read, "Jesus took the 5 loaves and 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he thanked God for the food. He divided the bread and gave it to his followers for them to give to the people. Then he divided the 2 fish among them all." Before giving the food to the people, the Lord Jesus gave thanks to his Father for the provision. Recently, I heard an atheist express his gratitude, and I thought, to whom is he grateful? The English word gratitude derives from the biblical word Eucharistos, which comes from 2 Greek words, eu, meaning good, and charizomai, meaning grace. According to the Bible, at the heart of gratitude is a response to the overwhelming grace of God. This brings up a very important question. Where did we get our definitions of all things? The answer is not so obvious to many, but the answer is God. This is why he has given us his word, the Bible. Think of it. Where do we go to get the best definition of love? Of course, we go to Paul's first epistle to the Corinthians, chapter 13. This is where we went wrong in the first place. We allowed someone other than the God of the Bible to define things for us. And largely, Christianity is being in a relationship with God through which he increasingly defines things for us. In verse 42 of today's passage, we read, "All the people ate and were satisfied." From such a small amount, thousands were satisfied. The Greek word translated satisfied means to be gorged. These people had never tasted anything like this. We find satisfaction in this life when we discover our true God-given purpose for being here. As long as we pursue our own ideas of what will satisfy us, we will never find it. In verses 43 and 44 of today's passage, we read, "The followers filled 12 baskets with the leftover pieces of bread and fish. There were 5,000 men who ate." Surely it was not a coincidence that there were 12 full baskets of the broken pieces of bread and also fish. The basket here is the Greek word that refers to a traveling food bag that one would carry his meal in. There were 12 baskets because there were 12 disciples. The Lord Jesus knew how much to create so that everybody was totally satisfied. And then there were 12 baskets left over. The Lord Jesus was yet again training his disciples. In verse 45 of today's passage, we read, "Immediately Jesus told his disciples to get into the boat and go ahead of him to Bethsaida across the lake. He stayed there to send the people home." The Lord Jesus Christ is the very antithesis of all other leaders we have known in this world. He sees the hunger and he is moved to intervene. But we cannot access his involvement in our lives and his blessings until we are in a personal relationship with him. The feeding of the 5,000 foreshadowed the sacrament of the Lord's Supper, which ultimately points us to the marriage supper of the Lamb found in Revelation chapter 19. At that supper, we will realize the goodness of the Lord in every possible way. It will be then that we will know what it means to live in a world where righteousness reigns, and we will truly be satisfied. Sadly, the last picture in today's passage is that of the Lord Jesus sending the people back to their homes. And we know in the days that followed this great miracle, the people forgot what happened, and they rejected the free gift of salvation the Lord Jesus came to offer the willing. This happened because they chose not to be grateful to the Lord and to be defined by him. My friends, I trust this blog and this podcast are helpful to you in your walk with the Lord. If I can be of further assistance to you, shoot me an email at BYoungMinistry@gmail.com. Hey, have a great day.